Welcome to the New Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the New Cyber Frontier. My name is Shawn Murray, and we are starting off the beginning of the year with relevant, in-person, in-time content for the show. Welcome back, Chris Gorog and Tim Montgomery. I'm Shawn Murray. Today we're going to talk about security orchestration and automation response tool. The amount of data that we're producing now for a SIM or an IDS or an IPS or something that flows into a SIM is so vast that a human just doesn't have the ability. I don't care how seasoned of an analyst you are, the amount of data that's coming in and being presented to the tools and the data that's being represented, we're looking at the sophistication of the attacks that are coming through, especially when we're looking at APTs and different lines of code and different coding languages. The technology just doesn't have the ability to have the human read in real time and catch all the threats that are coming through. SOAR is a methodology that can be incorporated into a tool to help automate that process. Tim, I'll pass it over to you. Your thoughts on SOAR?
Yeah, SOAR for me, I could see this being relevant because of the ingesting of data, a large amount of data coming from information security and event manager of the SIEM, and that there's not enough, professionals in the field to make this in real time. So the instant response measures, the amount of time you need to give a response is so lengthy because of the data that's flowing into those SIEMs. I can see where this type of what they call SOAR here program would automate and kind of take that need from the human response, particularly to being able to respond more directly and a much more faster rate. I think my concern about this is now starting to evolve to a point where artificial intelligence does take, a smart intelligence approach does take. However, I mean, this starts to venture into taking the human resources out of it and the professionals. I realize there's a real gap in today, the amount of people we need as cybersecurity professionals, and this would help in the automated response, especially or incident response mechanisms. This would actually help that piece of it. But then we start to get into, does the artificial intelligence start getting into making its own judgments without human relevance to it? So, I mean, those are types of things I think of when we talk about this SOAR concept. So,
and interesting, I'll weigh in and say the first time I heard the acronym SOAR was right before the show when Tim said, let's talk about SOAR. And I said, what is that? So it's obviously something, we'll say, new. And me having not worked in a mature security organization like the government for a couple of years, following the startup trail, it's entirely new. So I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate and poke a little bit at this and say, what are we talking about? But it sounds like literally 2014, I think I still have a publication out about this, where I was involved with some of the early major attacks in the government sector. And they put all kinds of equipment in place to monitor so they wouldn't have the attack again. And then 4 months later, they had produced more data from their monitoring and event management systems that they installed for security than they did a whole year of operational data. And they said, okay, well, so now what do we do with all this data? And every company said, we'll have an AI solution to you soon, next year. And I've been hearing that since that time, is that AI is going to come solve the problem. Is that what we're talking about here? This is the approach to that AI solving the problem of too much data for a human to look at.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start when we come back from this break.
Blockframe technology offers next-generation blockchain-managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We're in another edition of the New Cyber Frontier. We're talking about SOAR, security, orchestration, and response software tools. The amount of data that's being produced now in automation, our network devices, security devices, looking at the SIM, for example, the amount of data that comes in that needs to be fine-tuned. There's a need for automation based on the amount of data that's created, not just by these tools, but think back during 2 years of a pandemic. One of the things that has been created as a job specifically is data scientists, based on all of the data that's been developed and crunched and collected for the pandemic specifically. When we apply that to the methodologies to be able to analyze, artificial intelligence, intelligence information, or using vast amounts of data and parse that so it's useful for information for whatever your industry is, information, cybersecurity, we need these types of tools to be able to do it. SOAR is a concept that's been around for a few years now. We're just now starting to talk about it. I teach courses, of course, with Murray Security Services. CISSP is one of those big dog certifications that now includes the concept of SOAR, addresses the issue, and allows the practitioner to understand how it could be applied to their environment.
Guess I'm looking for Tim. What's ask me questions about the legs thoughts around this. I'll come up with something. But
So,
where are we
okay,
going?
so you said before the break here, right? So is this the beginning of AI taking over? So I would have to say, yeah, this is a unique situation where there's the ingestion of millions of alerts coming on. There's not one set of people. You would have to have an orchestrated group of individuals to really analyze that data, like you said, with data sciences. And I think where this comes into play, it'll help point out patterns, things of that nature that a computer could actually provide, artificial intelligence could actually provide to you, in the way in which humans can take a look at it and wouldn't have to analyze amounts of data. It would do it for it, suggesting ideas, things of that nature. So as we lean into this more and more, as long as we're not going past certain limitations, this artificial intelligence concept for SOAR and this methodology, I think would definitely provide something that's needed today. I think that's also one of the other factors is like cyber mesh concepts come into play where you've got solutions that need to be working in unison. And this is something where even SOAR could take in all the ingestions of those different types of solutions together to be kind of the platform that projects, where are we headed, what are the patterns, some of the concepts of what we should do, that's prioritizing, because of vulnerability assessment, risk assessment type of concepts. You really got to focus on some of the priorities, and you got to justify those too. So, I mean, this idea of SOAR really goes a long way to kind of sync us with the already given gap of professionals that are not there. And the ingestion data is, that type of data that's coming in exponentially every year just gets bigger and bigger, right? Grows. So definitely a need for this. It's just it would draw concerns at those levels, saying, where are we going with it? So, I mean, where are we going with it?
Is the algorithmic approach to analyzing the data? How would that be done? Is there an idea for? Because the last I heard, in the fight for this, we were narrowing down, looking at all the data and saying, which million data sets that were made today can we eliminate that a user doesn't have to look at, so we only leave 100,000, and we still couldn't get a user to look at them all. What algorithms are we going to make that's going to be effective for this purpose? Or do we have that approach? Do you know how it's being done?
Yeah, I mean, that's the crux of the concept behind SOAR. When I reflect back on how SOAR applies to previous positions as a SOC manager, so I've SOC meaning Security Operations Center, government, we call it Defensive Cyber Operations, the CERT, however you want to figure that out. I've worked in managed a couple different ones, and I reflect back on one where ArcSight was the SIM that we were using to ingest lots of information and data. We were getting so many alerts and so many events that there's just no way our analysts could look at all of the things that were coming through. My 24/7 ops folks, my analysts. So we got permission to hire 2 ArcSight engineers to come in and fine tune. So we were really looking at the things that we needed to. Now we're talking about events that are even more comprehensive, and you're using an analyst or a set of analysts to really chase down, say, such as malware or a variant of malware to determine what has happened. How many benign events do you need to look at as a human analyst before you get to that piece of malware, and how many other pieces of malware or variants got through that you weren't able to look at? So when we look at forensics, reverse engineering of those types of things, SOAR provides the capability or the crux, the ability with decent SOAR tools to automate that process.
So we in the software design world, we have this concept that we try to shake our developers when they do, we call it Easter egging. It's like, let me just go through my yard, through wherever, and lift up rocks and look for problems. It sounds, it seems like that this whole analysis center and looking at potential threats and flags that come in is just Easter egging, which is like the biggest thing we try to get away from in design world.
Yeah, and then that gives way to patterns, right? So, and I also think that can be a narrow focus when we talk about, so like with antivirus libraries, and when you're looking at vulnerability assessment, you're looking for patterns, right? A lot of times the algorithms know what to look for because there's a defined print on the data. And so I think we can also be narrow focused and miss, like Shawn was alluding to, what are the ones we missed? So I think we do have to watch, at least with this methodology, as we start to expand on its idea, we really need to watch how, there are 0-day attacks, and where do those come from? Those concepts come from because they're unknowns. That the library doesn't hold that. So where do we find those patterns and be able to predict those? Does AI have a place there? I mean, what's your thoughts there, Shawn?
Yeah, I think it's a great place to start when we come back from our next break.
Blockframe technology offers next-generation blockchain-managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the New Cyber Frontier. We're talking about SOAR and some of the capabilities of automation to chase information, data analytics, artificial intelligence. Tim was just talking about some various concepts related to some additional capabilities. Tim.
Yeah, when we're talking about the factors of patterns and those types of availabilities, artificial intelligence being able to see the footprint inside of data to detect, bring those to the front, focusing the small handful of cyber professionals on what they probably need to be prioritizing themselves with. But what happens when the AI doesn't understand the pattern? Where do we get that? The smart factor that comes into this concept of SOAR and the methodology that's being used, I'm not sure. I mean, I guarantee you that in the algorithms that are being built, it's potentially looking at feasible factors, and it should present those at least to the individuals that are going to be reviewing this type of thing. If you're actually using data to review and report. So, I mean, what's the idea behind SOAR being able to dictate and understand things that are not there yet? I mean, I understand the unicy of these solutions that we use. So, I mean, what do you think?
I think it's pressing a capability for additional capabilities. And I'll look at Splunk, for example. When we were at this previous organization, we were one of the first organizations to implement Splunk. And Splunk was being used to parse information, parse data relevant for us to be able to chase things down. Splunk now is being used for business analytics, non-cyber related capabilities, because it has the features, it has the engine to be able to do that effectively. When we look at SOAR was originally looking at automating the process of helping analysts to better define things that they need to investigate for incident response. When we incorporate maybe an intelligence artificial intelligence engine into that, I think going back to the example with Splunk, I think the capabilities would be endless. Not only am my analysts looking at feeds coming in, but what about my hunt analysts now? Hunt analysts aren't looking at feeds. They're not looking at the SIM. They're looking at data patterns and intelligence, looking for the adversary and creating tickets. So how does SOAR provide capabilities? Maybe with an artificial engine, do we incorporate IBM Watson, just as an example, or some other artificial intelligence to be able to provide the capabilities? And then how do you massage, back to your point, Tim, if I have a deviation that it's not working as intended, how do I manipulate the environment to get the artificial intelligence to give me what I'm looking for? I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, and just kind of my thoughts. It sounds like, and not being much in this, I would welcome that we could get some experts on from those companies that are looking at these AI patterns. But like in antivirus, we have registration type where we're looking at, what are known problems, and they're registered on a list somewhere on a website. So we have antivirus that does that. Then we have antivirus that looks for behavior. Are they trying to access? Are they doing certain things that are overwriting? Are they just doing known problems in recursive actions, or looking for access to get to elevated access? And then the third type is looking for patterns, like the cyber kill chain. They're looking for what are people doing in sequence over time. And it sounds like those three types of principles will still hold true in this.
Yeah.
Just with algorithms looking in those areas, what do we know that's already out there? You're not going to catch the new things, the 0 days in that. The patterns, you might catch some of those, but the people actions and things that people do, the advanced persistent threats, are the cyber kill chain, the things that are happening over time, where we can follow in maybe even a human type thought process.
Yeah, and other things like, is there bottlenecking in this concept? Like, is there one point failure? I mean, I don't know. In this method, it sounds like this availability to expand on having multiple layers to this that would make decisions, not just from AI or solutions that have been available. It would ingest everything to provide. And also the human factor in here. What about being too reliant on such a factor? I mean, those two things come into concept. You know how humans are. If they say, well, this is just how it is. I mean, what goes on and on and on about being able to evolve such a solution, so we know, we have a trust in it, that it's not just feeding things that, in other words, we're being able to catch the things we don't know at some point. I mean, is that where this is going? Those are three factors I can think of. If you think through this, if you get too reliant on some certain solutions, it becomes complacent. And that's not good for cyber.
Yeah, I still need to have analysts with the right skill set, the right trade craft to be able to do this job. and think, alternatively than an artificial intelligence agent. So take all of the experience that you have as an analyst over the many years. You may understand old coding language like COBOL and Fortran and recognize something similar in a data stream that you haven't programmed or thought to even program into that artificial intelligence engine. Mm-hmm. Remember, artificial intelligence can't do that gut feeling, can't do emotions, can't replace some aspects that the human element just brings to the table well.
Yeah. So it sounds like a unified effort, right, Chris?
Yeah, and still the big concern that I saw with early stages of what I guess what is turned into SOAR now is the false positive, false negatives by the AI. For months it could miss something and have a false negative, and then the analysts never get triggered to look at it. And then how many false positive and shutdowns are you gonna endure before you turn the thing off?
Yeah. And the cost. What about the cost of this? I mean, is it going to absorb? You have multiple solutions. Is it going to be able to? Is there a manageable type of methodology that would fit into small business? I mean, are we outsourcing? What are we doing for cost?
Yeah, this is definitely not anything a small business is going to be looking at.
Yeah,
they're they're subscribing to a service, right?
Yeah, they would be. Yeah, exactly. This is a new concept. And the word just recently came out. I don't think I've heard of it before last year. I don't remember. I know that Shawn, you said it's been out for a few years, but I don't think I remember actually hearing this word just in the last 2 years. I don't remember before that this ever came up as a concept, but maybe it's been there much longer. It just hasn't come, that far forward for it to be heard enough to become the buzzword, right?
Yeah, it's been needed for a while. Yeah, it's been needed for a while in our industry, especially on the cert side, for all of the information, those alerts that come in. So probably had a little heads up on it.
So is it another buzzword, another effort that we're going to follow for 2 years, and then it'll be superseded by the next buzzword?
Like
how they come and go. Some of them stick around forever, and some of them I don't even know what they were. We forgot them. So, I mean, botnet, how long has that been around? Backup, the word backup, is that still a buzzword?
Let's throw.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, these are the things you think of when the new concepts come out, right? The tools are great. The solutions, robust. It's just cyber professionals are just looking at this thing like it should tell us what to do. I don't think that's the way it should work. I mean, human factors go into play here, and we certainly need to keep up on our own profession to be equally as good, if not better, if we can. So, I mean, that's where your certifications, your ongoing CPEs, those types of things come into play, because you got to keep up with standards that are moving. And we know data is evolving, and the abilities to act on that data and the type of resources and IT infrastructure that keeps evolving in our world, it's just making it more and more, dependent. I mean, as we go along, right? So this type of tool and this type of methodology will evolve properly. I guess those are big questions, right, for this.
Well, they're definitely needed. We just have too much data, too much automation, and humans only have so much capacity. They get tired, they get fatigued, and they can only look at stuff for so long. So, but back to the point, human needs to be able to control the process.
Yeah, I think there's a limit. The human still needs to be involved in all counts. I just know there's limitations to how much a human can ingest and understand about the data that's coming at them too. So, Chris, what's your thoughts on that?
About every year, sometimes every other year, there's an entirely new framework that everybody's going to follow, that everything is going to change to, that is just going to change the industry. And we get the RMFs, we get the CMMC, we get the the NIST 181.
Crazy information.
What are we chasing this year? Is this the new thing to chase? And let's forget about CMMC because it didn't get any legs. Where that's what comes to my mind when I hear a whole new framework.
Yeah. And
It's like a little
SOAR,
sarcastic punch,
yeah, the SOAR idea, automation, right? That's kind of what this thing kind of reflects on, is taking an awful lot of data and being able to help produce something that is necessary and needed, actually projects an idea. So AI, the artificial intelligence. I mean, we talked about that on the show a few shows back about, and this is what this idea projects, is this artificial intelligence concept. And just where do we start? Where does that limit happen, Shawn? Where do we go with just how reliable is such a thing? And where does it stop? So
Skynet.
that's exactly right. Everybody goes back to the same thing, right? So
we'll know when we get there and it becomes self-conscious and takes over. Then we'll know.
then SOAR is the end of us, right?
By then my name will be Neo.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it evolves into the futuristic aspects that we're all fearing, right? The Skynet idea. Well, I don't know about you, but it looks like it sounds like a great methodology. I hope it evolves and sticks around. So, I mean, what other concepts does this also bring on? I mean, what other ideas about SOAR? I know the unison, like cyber mesh, the idea of cyber mesh, which is the unison of multiple solutions working hand in hand to produce the correct measures, right? Project the correct reports, bring their information to light for the analysts that are involved in having to figure out what the vulnerabilities are and stay ahead of the power curve, basically. I mean, what kind of other solutions, other things kind of bring to mind, Shawn?
Well, I bring it back to the example with Splunk, right? What else can we use it for other than, initially we looked at it for all of the events that are being ingested through our appliances and all the data that's being created. I look at it from a perspective of what else can we use that information for? We can establish standards for forensics, digital forensics investigation, work with an organization like the Scientific Working Group for Digital Evidence, SWEGI, that will take a look at how that might be applied towards the field of forensics investigation, automating those processes to look at things that they already know, they've already established, so that they can focus on the new complexities of digital forensics that might need more time. It's new stuff. We've got new platforms, new protocols, different things that we're doing, and let's focus on those as opposed to the things that we already know. Let the automation collect and report on those things that we already know so we can focus on what we don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. Chris, the idea behind this concept, just picking up things that we already know, let us deal with the things that we may not know. So, I mean, maybe this particular methodology is best placed with that type of concept, with that type of idea. I mean, do you think we should be going, you think this thing can pick up and tell us the unknown? Something like that?
I would say it's a big money thing. I think one of you mentioned that earlier. The big companies can chase this next buzz. Me being a startup and a shoestring budget and everything, it's something I wouldn't even consider for years down the road. So it's almost like a scoping thing in the mind of what can we go after. We're not at the maturity to be optimizing, so we're kind of at that at base things, and this is one of the structures that would be very mature to me.
Yeah. There was some part of this that talks about built-in workflows and streamline operations. So where do we get these workflows? I mean, how do we create these workflows from this concept, Shawn? What do you think?
So the workflows have to be decided on what you think the value is of the data or the information that's coming through. Going back to some of the examples I provided from if I put my manager of a SOC and trying to help my analysts and my analyst leads provide better capability to really chase down those events that turn into incidents that I want them to chase. Think of the sysadmins or the network administrators. So if I just stick with network administrators, how much data is flowing over my network? what's encrypted, what's not encrypted. We still keep incorporating new types of technology like data loss prevention systems. How do I incorporate data loss prevention systems to provide additional analytical information that can help me determine an insider threat, as opposed to just telling me that I had data that was prevented from going out because it didn't meet the rules. I really want to find that insider threat. What are they doing? What are the thresholds? What are the things that we can do to incorporate those types of methodologies on other technologies to help sysadmins, business analytics, key performance indicators, that metric that I need to support a goal or objective that aligns with organizational strategy. Those are the things I'd be looking at.
Yeah. And, when you do produce those metrics, if this becomes so automated, and Chris, do you think that this would, the operations means that we no longer need this cyber guy? I mean, I'm sure we'll never go to that. Let's put it that way. Those are always going to be used for us. I can guarantee you that. However, I mean, from the business side of this, do you think you'll ever see that particular type of thing come about as far as, hey, we've got this product that's just going to tell us what's going on anyway, so I don't have to. Yeah, the magic pill, right? Yeah. Yeah. Shawn, what do you think?
I think it's a topic for a future conversation, right? So we've actually chewed up all the time that we've got for this topic. I think, back to Chris's point, we've got some experts that are out there that are using this technology. We'd ask for, the audience, you guys listen to our show, you listen to our program, the things that we talk about. Maybe you know somebody, maybe you're that person that can provide some additional insight to provide more value to the rest of our listeners. We'd ask you to reach out to us, contribute, or if you've got somebody else that you think can contribute to our program. You know what we talk about. It's compelling. We want to make sure that it's valuable to our listeners. So we're going to pass it back to you and say thanks again for listening to another episode of the New Cyber Frontier.
Thank you.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at NewCyberFrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.